Welcome back, everybody, to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I am your host, Paulie DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today's episode will cover Batwing Vol.1. It was titled The Lost Kingdom, and it was written by Judd Winnick with art by Ben Oliver, and the first 6 issues were released between November 2011 to April of 2012. First off, I feel like it's worth mentioning that our main character here, David Zavimbi, was only created 5 months prior to the release of this series, and he would also make appearances in the Batman Incorporated title that bridged into the New 52. David was Batwing for volumes 1 to 3 until Luke Fox took over the mantle for volumes 4 and 5. Issue number 1 begins smack in the middle of a fight between Batwing and a bone-masked villain who, for now, utters a phrase, "We honor them all in blood," which will be important later since this scene is a glimpse of the final climax, which I always thought was kind of a lazy plot device. It's easy to intrigue people with your endings, but writing a beginning to keep the book in the reader's hands is tricky. A 6-week time gap is then jumped back to with Batwing chasing down a drug runner named Blood Tiger and some of his gang. And this does sound like a cool nickname, but there aren't any tigers in Africa, so I'm not so sure. While this is going down, we get some great internal dialogue. Seriously, every character in the Batman family was spoiled in this department. And here, David is mentioning that being Batman of Africa is way harder than being the regular Batman, and I have to agree. A rogues gallery aside, there's just a stack of reasons for it to be nigh impossible for one person to do what he's doing on that continent. The real Batman makes his first of multiple appearances in this book. Man, guy just seemed omnipresent in these volume 1s. Damn. And he backs up Batwing, who apprehends Blood Tiger, eventually leading to the two Batmen finding half of his crew hacked up Jason Voorhees style. Yikes. A look into David's civilian life is seen next, with him being a police officer in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. More specific, the city of Tinashe, which is a stand-in for Kinshasa, the real-life capital, and he's talking about how the corruption in the local law enforcement disgusts him, leading into a test he set up with a fellow cop and possible love interest, Kia Okuru. She passes this so-called test, providing a clue in the Blood Tiger crew slaughter involving a corpse of a man named Didi Yaboa also being found there, and this shows she's not trying to sweep things under the rug and maybe is opening up another investigation into things. Batman joins Batwing in his Bat Cave called the Haven, and with the help of his Alfred, the eye-patched Matu Ba, they discern Didi was part of an original group of 7 African superheroes called the Kingdom, who appeared 5 years ago, and he went by Earthstrike. David returns to work due to having his precinct look into the entire multi-murder case, which is why his test with Kia was so important to him, only to find half of the cops in the station chopped up to pieces. Yeesh. Now, shock value aside, these scenes are definitely also needed to set the tone so that titles like this could stick around, and that brings me neatly to the final scene of the bone mask villain we saw earlier stabbing David. And yes, I know, him being gravely wounded in the end of issue number 1 here is a serious opener, but having our main character, let alone a Batman affiliate, be easily snuck up on and nearly murdered 10 pages in, that doesn't help with certain things. Issue number 2 starts with one of the many flashbacks, since this series also had to pretty much establish David's backstory, considering he didn't have one yet. And this scene is of how Batman gave him his suit of armor plus other tech. Back to real time, David is still in the midst of being cut open and staring on at his dead associates. Very vicious stuff indeed, but Kia shows up to stop the attack and ends up saving him, but he is left unconscious. He awakens 2 weeks later in the Haven because reasons, and finds out Kia was nearly beaten to death by Bone Mask after saving him, and he even killed more cops during his escape, 23 in total. A man named Mr. Bello is cut to, and he's an elementary school teacher who's also the next target of Bone Mask due to being a former Kingdom member, Thunderfall, but doesn't reveal that or his lightning powers until getting his ass kicked a bit for some reason. And out of all the superpowers available, why lightning? Isn't there already a black lightning shooting character? What's his name again? David is then seen trying to re-enter his duties, even though still weak and heavily against Matu's wishes. So he gets tranked by David, who rushes out to join the battle. He somehow knows is happening and exactly where to find it. Yeah, sure, why not? Thunderfall continues to fight for his life in pretty awful manner, I must say, considering it's lightning versus a friggin' machete, yet he still gets an arm lopped off. Batwing shows up so we can finally get a name of Bone Mask. He aptly calls himself Massacre while getting ready to face Batwing for the first time. Issue number 3 dives into another flashback of David's 11 years ago when he and his little brother Isaac were child soldiers in Warlord General Ayokita's Army of the Dawn, seeming to have meta levels of agility, stealth, and even strength when Kita is told they led an attack on a village, killing many all by themselves, and then even beat down their superiors for trying to make them kill women and children. Even with that fact aside, David's history being shown here with him and his brother killing dozens of people for sure raises an eyebrow. Considering Batman and family have such issues with murder, the Batman and Robin Eternal series was basically built on the question of if Bruce took a single life in the past. I'm getting way too ahead here though, so now in the present, Batwing catches Massacre in a nifty grapple hook move, allowing Thunderfall to get briefly tended to before Massacre comes back for some more extremely fierce fighting, hinting that he has some kind of vendetta against the Kingdom members. Thunderfall lends his available hand to end the battle since Batwing is still not fully recovered, but he then collapses from blood loss, requiring him to be rushed to a hospital where he ends up bleeding to death, but not before revealing tidbits of a secret betrayal by the Kingdom members, leaving 50,000 people dead because of them. Issue number 4 has some rather riveting stuff from cover to cover, kicking off with the daunting scene of Batwing finding a murdered, hung-up woman who was the latest Kingdom member Massacre went after, called Dawnfire. Her body is recovered from her burning house, so David can later analyze it to get clues as to who Massacre is, so he can go after him before striking again, and just kidding, nothing comes of this. The rest of the issue is straight flashback to 10 years ago, and I think the character designs here are very well conceived. There are pictures and videos of child slave soldiers with the gaudy gold necklaces, toting assault rifles all over. They're very prevalent, and this art here really struck the essence of that distressing reality. The story itself tells of David and Isaac's final days with General Kita's Army of the Dawn, as he's in battle with a man called Okuru, and maybe this was going to be a plot line involving a past family member of Kia, since this is the same last name as hers, but Because David wasn't really in the Batwing mantle for long, it's up for question. After General Kita states his phrase, "We honor them all in blood," he instructs the two brothers to blow up Okuru's entire village, killing many women and children along the way. So they defy him, nearly getting the entire attack squadron killed. General Kita naturally plans to kill the two brothers, now savagely beating Isaac first until he ends up fighting back with a rock. So Kita goes from blunt to sharp, slashing Isaac violently with a machete until he falls from a cliff. David escapes the two men that were restraining him, even though it was said he kicked the crap out of over 45 people in issue number 3, but his brother was helping him, so, alright. That sort of explains why he couldn't help his brother just then. But anyway, he evades into the jungle, and then later that night sneaks into the sleeping quarters of Kita and captures him. The last pages involving this revenge ploy, done in the dark gray tones, really tie it all together as David brings General Kita to Okuru's compound and alerts some guards that someone is there, basically leaving him for dead. David then decides to go to a children's savior center next, where he meets Matu for the first time, setting up final scenes of them together in the Haven in present time. They discuss their parents, David's having died when he was very young, and Matu's being oil barons, which will be kind of important in Volume 2, but for now, Batwing has his next plan on how to find Massacre in the works. Issue number 5 opens with a dream David's having going back 10 years when he's ordered by General Kita to burn people alive while they beg. Oh boy, not really helping in the moral ambiguity department regarding his admittance into the Batwing. He later has a quick chat with Matu, and they discuss new plans for Massacre since he's been hiding out for the last 2 weeks. It involves revamping the old HQ of the kingdom called the Citadel for an anniversary appreciation event in hopes of drawing him out. David sees Kia for the first time since Massacre's massacre, showing he's not the best with the ladies. And even though he pisses her off with the ignorant and kinda dumb comments of why Massacre didn't kill her, it was actually a clue to his ID if you paid close attention to all the flashback scenes in this book. But then again, he did kill Dawnfire, so yeah, I don't know and I don't care. Moving on, Bruce Wayne is present for the Citadel ceremony, being accompanied by a man named Josiah Coney, who was the tech guy for the kingdom, and because of his presence, a group of assailants in bone masks amongst the crowd attempt an assassination. However, it's discovered none of them are Massacre after Batwing, Kia, and Batman take them all down. This was all actually a distraction when it's noticed by Batman the Citadel has been rigged with heavy explosives and is demolished. I didn't see this one coming the first time I read the book. Batwing then lets some rage out, getting enough info from one of the shooters, which is then sent to Matu, who gets a lock on Massacre's location, which is in Egypt. Issue number 6 is the final for this volume, starting with a glimpse into David's first days as a cop 3 years ago, and immediately witnessing bribery and corruption, later telling Matu that he cannot stand it. Jumping to the present, Massacre has found the Kingdom member Daniel Belugun, aka Steelback, and instructs him plus some other civilians to board a bus that he locks them inside of. Batwing arrives before anything more can continue, but he's in a special flight armor, not battle armor, so apparently that's a disadvantage. Some more flashbacks to just a year ago are seen, with David doing the masked vigilante thing, displaying enough potential for Batman to notice and eventually recruit him. Then we cut back to the last fight between Batwing has with Massacre in this book, bringing things full circle to the first pages we saw, which you could kind of tell was Egypt now, thanks to the pyramids, if you look really close. Yeah. The "we honor them all in blood" phrase is spoken, and this has Batwing believing Massacre is the somehow still alive General Kita, but we won't find out here. Oh. Instead, Massacre lights the bus full of people on fire, only for Batwing to put it out 4 seconds later, and he sets Massacre ablaze. Monkey see, what? Yeah, you get it. Massacre seems unfazed, and while Batwing rescues the people, he disappears into the desert. Steelwork is questioned in the Haven by Batman and Batwing, saying one of the 3 remaining Kingdom members, Deity, is hidden among the wild and she'll never be found, but the other 2, Razorwire and Staff, you'll never guess where they are. I'm honestly not even going to tell you, it's so easy to guess. Alright, fine, I will. No, I don't even need to, do I? Okay, ready? Gotham City. Big shocker, right? Batman then says that he and Batwing can be told about this supposed 50,000 deaths on the Kingdom's heads while on the way to Gotham, where Robin and Nightwing await. Alright. Now, it's a bit difficult to dispute that giving a character less than half a year old his own series was super risky. So Judd Winnick was an excellent choice for writing duties here. One of the most popular stories he wrote was 2005's Under the Red Hood, returning Jason Todd from the dead, which I'm eternally thankful for because he is my favorite former Robin by a wide margin. And my point here is that past plot line I mentioned and the subsequent Red Hood stories tackled new beginnings, which is exactly what the whole title here is about. David's new journey as Batwing. Winnick also did a fantastic job of connecting David to his home country through backstory. His personality is believable and semi-realistic. Massacre is the first of a couple of cool villains to grace this series, and there have been multiple characters in DC and even Marvel to have that title, but this version is original. Including the African continent having its own group of heroes in the Kingdom, which were original creations as well, was interesting, even though trying to maybe make more of them and creating bigger things out of the entire concept never happened. One idea that immediately came to my mind was Vixen maybe having family relations to one of the Kingdom members, since it's later shown she knows David. Perfect Justice League Africa members, which leads into another idea I always thought would be cool for a series. It's called Justice League World, where every continent has a Justice League and the stories alternate between them and they constantly interact with each other. The art by Ben Oliver, on the other hand, is like nothing else in the New 52. A mix between paint and pencil almost, it looks, but it just seems a tad detail lacking in some parts. Being based in Central Africa gives opportunity for lush backgrounds, radiant skies, and maybe a couple mountain scenes. There's just none of that. Anyhow, the only other thing I thought was missing was supporting or side characters. With David being unknown, it was virtually a blank canvas. Kia and Matu are okay, but there's just so much others to choose from. Some kind of elderly shaman, maybe a westerner friend that is against Africa being pillaged and plundered, wildlife specialists, maybe a kooky alchemist friend that's in the sciences of the country, or a jungle man or girl that he's known for a bunch of years since he spent time in the woods a long time. I don't know, those are just the things that came to the top of my head when I was writing this script. But with all that, I think I've said enough for this first volume, so if you've made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you very much as always, and to please like, share, and subscribe follow me on all my social media platforms, and to join me next time for Grifter Volume 1.